Hi, welcome to Karen's Kitchen. I'm Karen. I'm a self-taught baker and passionate about baking. Growing up, I learned to bake from my mom and grandma, and we tried out a lot of family recipes, and then I started exploring on my own. In 2019, I started a small baking business out of my home called Karen's Kitchen. I use einkorn, which is an ancient grain. It's high in protein, low in carbs, and packed with nutrition. It's also organic and non-GMO. With einkorn, I bake custom cupcakes and layer cakes using organic ingredients whenever possible, and I never use artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives. If you're gluten sensitive like me, einkorn can be your new go-to flour. Hi, I'm Karen, and I have a business called Karen's Kitchen, and today we're gonna make 2 July 4th inspired desserts. The first one we're gonna do is blueberry galette, and the second is mixed berry cupcakes. So come on in and join me. Today we have a very special grain called einkorn flour. There's 120 grams in this bowl and 96 grams of the whole grain einkorn in this bowl. And we have 7 tablespoons of diced up cold butter, and we have 2 tablespoons sugar, cane sugar, and a 1/4 teaspoon salt, and then some to put under our dough as we're rolling to make sure it doesn't stick to the bowl. So we're going to combine these 2 flours together, and your 2 tablespoons sugar, salt. I like to use sea salt. I've heard it has more nutritional value than regular iodized salt. And then we're gonna mix this together with our pastry blender later. So we're gonna use this in the beginning just to give it a stir to make sure that all the ingredients are combined. And then we're going to add your butter. And it's really important for this to be ice cold after you dice it up, because as the butter melts in the oven, it's going to release pockets of the butter, and it's going to create a tender crust. So let's put that all in there. And then with your pastry blender, you're going to mix in the dough. Mix in the butter. You want to do this until the butter becomes smaller pieces. And it takes a little bit of time, but you get a little bit of a workout in as you're doing it. So einkorn flour is a very special flour to me. I came across it because I developed a gluten sensitivity to modern wheat, and I found that einkorn is original wheat. The one I use is organic, non-GMO. It's high in protein, low in carbs, and packed with nutrition. So it's easier on your digestion as well. And I love the taste of it. It's because it's original wheat, it's an ancient grain, and it has a marvelous flavor. We're almost there. So you can see the butter is getting smaller in size, which is what you want. And I'm just taking my finger to wipe off extra that develops on the blades. All right. What you want to do too at the end is you can just kind of work the butter in with your fingers, just breaking up the bigger pieces. And that kind of expedites the process. You do this same technique when you're making pie dough, so this is going to be very familiar to those of you who make pie. It's a regular pastry dough recipe. Okay, and we'll finish up with our pastry blender. And I'll show it to you again so you can see how small the butter has gotten. All right, so it's like a sandy texture. If you feel it with your hands, it kind of feels like wet sand, which is what you want. Okay, now we're going to add a 1/4 cup of ice cold water And sometimes I'll just add an ice cube or two before putting it in the fridge. And then before I add it to my ingredients, I will take out the cubes and make sure I have the right amount of water. You don't want too much water. You're gonna have too sticky of a dough, and not too much or too less, because then it's not gonna come together like you want. So add that to your dry mixture. And I'm gonna grab a fork and stir it together. If we use our pastry blender, you're just gonna have a real sticky mess. The fork is just more of a precise tool, and you can see how it's coming together. And it's gonna develop into a ball. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of cold water because a little bit of the flour is at the bottom and it's not combining. Just a very, very tiny bit, maybe less than 1/8 of a cup. Just drizzle in a little bit at a time so you don't get too wet of a dough. And you see it's coming together very well. And again, it takes a little time. I'm gonna add a little bit more water, just a bit. Okay, almost there. Okay, so I'm gonna take our hands, which in my opinion are your best kitchen tools, and you're gonna move around the dough in the bowl until you get a nice ball. It's going to pull away from the sides. Okay, I'm going to pat this together. Roll it around in your bowl so it collects all the little bits of flour and pastry that are there. Okay, so we have our ball of dough, and we're going to press it down a little bit, make it into a disc. And then grab some plastic wrap that we have over here. And we're gonna put it in the fridge for 30 minutes so it gets nice and chilled. But you don't want it too cold, so try to hold to that 30-minute time. And we'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. So right now we're going to make some vanilla batter for our Mary Berry cupcakes. So I've got some 120 grams of einkorn flour. I have a 1/4 teaspoon sea salt. I have some baking powder, 1 teaspoon. I have a teaspoon of vanilla, 2 eggs. I like the cage-free organic eggs. Yogurt, I like to use vanilla, but you can also use plain yogurt. That's 60 grams. And then 135 grams of cane sugar, has more of a molassesy taste, gives you more flavor. And also 6 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter. You want to do unsalted because you're then more in control of how much salt you have in your finished product. All right, so what we're going to do is take our flour, which is einkorn, and we're going to add it to a sifter. It's really, really important when you're baking with einkorn to have a hand sifter handy, because you want to aerate the flour. Einkorn is a little bit denser than your all-purpose flour, your modern wheat, and so you want to aerate it because that's going to make it lighter, the cake lighter. So we take our baking powder and our salt. Actually, I could just add that right to the flour. Don't need to sift that. We will sift it together again before we totally assemble our batter. Make sure everything gets in there. Okay, so that we'll put off to the side. And now we're going to mix our eggs. So in a medium-sized bowl, you want to crack your eggs. And with a whisk, break them up. About 30 seconds or so, maybe less, 15, just so that they're broken down and a nice orange color. Okay, so we've got our 2 eggs and we're whisking them in this medium-sized bowl. And to that we're going to add our 135 grams of cane sugar. And we're going to mix that until the mixture has thickened and everything's incorporated. So it's going to be thick like that. All right, so then we go to our yogurt. And again, you can use a vanilla or plain yogurt. I like using vanilla. And that's 60 grams, and we're going to add our 6 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter to that. And then 1 teaspoon of real vanilla. I use the real vanilla from Madagascar. Just has a really wonderful flavor. And then we're going to transfer to a whisk so that it can really get incorporated. And you want to whisk this for, I don't know, 10-15 seconds until you see it all kind of a creamy color. It's all incorporated. And then the last step before we add the batter to our cupcake liners, which we have here just in time for 4th of July, decorated with little white stripes, blue background. So we have our flour mixture. Let me grab a bowl. Well, let's see. Maybe we could use one of these littler bowls. So I want to mix in this one. So what we're going to do is, I always love having small spatulas at my disposal so I can get my tools going and scrape all my great ingredients into other bowls. All right, so we're going to utilize this to mix our batter. Okay, so we emptied that out. All right, and we're going to take our wire whisk. Our strainers are really important, again with the einkorn, because you want to aerate the flour so that it's a light texture. So we have our 2 liquids. We have our yogurt with the butter and the vanilla, and then the eggs with the sugar, and then our flour mixture with the baking powder and the salt. And so in our bowl, we're going to take our flour, take our flour, and in 2 batches, we're going to add the flour to our sifter. And again, our best tools in the kitchen is your hand, because you're going to get in there and get every bit where it needs to go. And then give that a stir. You don't need to completely combine it, just so that the majority of the flour is involved and combined with your egg and sugar mixture. Almost there. Okay, that's pretty good. You don't want to overmix einkorn. You want your finished product to be nice and moist. And overmixing sometimes can make it tough. So let's give this a little whisk to make sure the butter and the yogurt and the vanilla is combined. We're going to add half of that to our mixture. I'm going to stir that together. Scrape the sides, get all that einkorn goodness in your batter. And then we're going to add the rest of our flour to it. All right. And mix this in. I'm going to wipe this off so that we get all of that incorporated. Go down the sides, make sure you get the flour in there. Okay, and it doesn't have to be completely combined before we mix the rest of our yogurt and butter and vanilla. Okay, and then give this the last stir. All right, and you know when you're done, when it's all the same color, uniform, kind of a pale yellow. So we take our cupcake tin and our ice cream scoop, and we're going to fill these cupcake liners. This particular recipe makes 10 cupcakes. I don't know why, so we don't need these additional 2. So you get your scoop in there, and you don't have to be exact, but kind of a level. And then whatever is in that scoop, drop into your liner. You can push it on the sides to kind of level it out a little bit. And try your best to get it in the center of the liner so that it's not dripping off the sides of the pan. It's okay if it does. But we want to get all of our goodness in our liner. And make sure you have your oven preheated at 350. I like to put mine on convection, but if you don't have that, that's okay. You can just do regular setting for your oven. And we're going to go on the last one. Use your spatula to get all the rest out of there so you're not missing out on any of your batter. You can use your spatula to fill your scoop if you need to. Okay. And do your best to try to get that last bit in there. If not, it's really okay. Just do your best. All right, so these are gonna go in the oven, 350 oven for about 14 minutes. I'm gonna check on them, make sure that they're puffing up. And what you want to look for is when you touch the tops, that it kind of springs back, just like any other kind of cake that you bake. So we'll put this in the oven. Got an oven here. And I'm going to set the timer for 14 minutes, and we'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. So we have our cupcakes in the oven. We have our dough chilled. Just took it out of the refrigerator. Next, we're going to make the almond cream. So you're going to use some blanched almonds. I use slivered almonds. As long as they don't have the skins on them, you're fine, because the skins on almonds will be bitter. If you don't have access to slivered almonds, this is 125 grams of slivered almonds, by the way, you can just take a pot of boiling water, put your almonds in there for just, I don't know, a minute or so, and then strain off the extra water, cool them down, and then just slip the skins right out, slip the almonds right out of the skins. So it's the same kind of product that results. So we have 125 grams of blanched almonds. We have 2 tablespoons of cane sugar. We have 2 tablespoons of room temperature butter, and we have 1 egg. Organic eggs is what I like to use. So we're gonna separate the yolk from the whites. We're gonna use the whites later to brush the galette before it goes in the oven so that we get a nice brown color on it. And so you're gonna separate your egg. You're gonna get the yolk by itself because we're gonna beat that and put that in with our other ingredients. So you have a food processor. These are really great tools to have in the kitchen. They do a lot of work for you. So pour the almonds in there and your sugar. And we're gonna grind these up, and you wanna make the almonds as small in size as possible. And the purpose of that is when you make it into a cream, you don't have bits and pieces that are not fully incorporated to make it that creamy texture. So I'm gonna start this. Okay, almost there. All right, let's check and see how fine it is. It's a really good texture. So this is what this looks like. It's just really, really fine. Fine little grains of almond with the sugar. Okay, to that we're gonna add our egg yolk and our 2 tablespoons unsalted butter. And then we're gonna process it again and incorporate those ingredients together so you have a creamy consistency. Perfect. Oh, so excited. All right, so let's get this off. All right, so we don't need our egg white right now. We're just gonna put that off to the side. And we're gonna take our paper. Make sure you have a dry surface. And this is just regular parchment paper, just cut a square. And we're gonna put it in this pan, which is a jelly roll pan. You want a pan that has sides on it, because if you just use a plain cookie sheet, while it's baking, all the juices might run out of the crust, or not all of them, but some. And so you wanna make your cleanup as easy as possible. So you want a lined jelly roll pan. So you've got your paper, and you wanna add a little flour, of course einkorn. Why would you use anything else? And you wanna spread that around so that you have a nice floured surface in which to roll your dough. So I switched to the dough because we can get this going, and then we're gonna put our cream right in the center. Again, this is chilling in the refrigerator for 30 minutes. If it's a little bit longer than 30 minutes because you had to answer the phone or pick up your kid from soccer practice, that's okay. Just be aware that it might need to sit out another 10 minutes or so, just so that it becomes pliable and a little bit closer to room temperature. You don't want it too warm. You want it to stay cool, but if it's too firm, you're not gonna be able to roll it out. Hi, so I took out the cupcakes. They smell amazing. So we wanna get these babies out of the tins. We'll put them on our cooling rack. They puffed up nicely. They have a beautiful color to them. And I know they're done because I just lightly touched the tops and they bounced back. So there's our cupcakes. And we're gonna go back to our dough. So we have flour underneath on top of the parchment paper, and then we have rolling pin that we're gonna dust so it doesn't stick to the dough. And you wanna start in the middle and you wanna push out, just like you do for pie dough. And you wanna turn it clockwise, or just 180. So just like a turn, quick turn. And make sure you got some flour on the rolling pin, and again from the center out, and then turn again. And if you're having a problem, like sticking a little bit here. I have a bench scraper, which is a nice tool to have in the kitchen, especially when you're working with pie dough. So just kind of give it a little turn. You want this to be in about 12-inch diameter. You don't necessarily need to have a tape measure in your kitchen, although it is a nice tool to have. But based on the size of the pan that I'm using today, you don't want it bigger than that. But if it goes over the sides, if it's a little bit larger than this, that's okay, because we're going to fold in the edges of the pastry dough over the middle part of the filling, which is blueberry today. You can fill this galette with sliced pears that you've sauteed with some butter and a little bit of brown sugar in a saucepan. And then, of course, you've peeled them and cored them and sliced them and before you put it in the pan. So, just until they're softened a little bit, and then you'd put that off to the side and have it cool so that it's not too hot when you add it on top of your almond cream. So the almond cream and adding the whole wheat einkorn to the all-purpose flour is beautiful because it gives a nutty taste to your dough. And when you do it with pear, for some reason, that nutty texture really complements pears. So whether you use Bartlett or Anjou, just make sure your pears are ripe. So we're almost done rolling this out, and I'm going to add a little bit more flour to my parchment because it's sticking a little bit. Okay. So a little bit more on our pan. Don't want to add too much flour because you don't want it to toughen the dough. Just enough so that it's not sticking. All right, so we're almost there. You can see it's a pretty good size compared to our pan, but I think it's a little thick. So I'm just gonna go from the center out to the edge. And you don't want to do it too thin, because then when you go to fold the edges of the galette in toward the center of your jam, you don't want tears. Okay, so let's take this. We're just going to lift it up and put it right into our jelly roll pan, like that. And then we're going to grab our cream. Remember the almond cream that we made? So it's in our food processor. We'll take a spatula and get this out. Take the center out. And you can just simply add it right to the center of your pastry dough. Okay. And then with an offset spatula, we're going to spread it into the center, making it flat and getting into, like, say, leaving a 2-inch or so border between the almond cream and the edge of your pastry dough, because you want to be able to fold up your edges of your dough over your filling. Okay, so we got that going. Just use your hands to flatten it out. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle or oval or anything, just so it's kind of flat and even, and that you've left an adequate border around it. Okay, and what the almond cream does, in addition to adding flavor to the galette, is it provides a barrier between the fruit and the pastry. So now we're going to take a short break, and we'll get into the blueberry galette part, the blueberry part of the galette. Okay, so now we're ready to make the blueberry filling for our blueberry galette. So we have the almond cream on top of the pastry, flattened out, and giving a little bit of a border so we can flip over the edges and fill in that lovely blueberry filling that we're going to make right now. So we have 260 grams of wild blueberries. So if you're using fresh, that's fine, but if you're doing frozen, you need to have it thawed so that you're not adding the icy water to the blueberries, because then you're just going to have too much juice. So I have 260 grams of wild blueberries in here, and we have 50 grams of cane sugar. We have 1/8 of a teaspoon sea salt, and we have 1 tablespoon of all-purpose einkorn flour. And we have some extra sugar that we're going to sprinkle on the crust once we have the edges of the dough folded in, and then before the sugar, we're going to brush it with the egg white that we've reserved from when we made the almond cream. All right, so to the blueberries, we're going to add our sugar, our 1/8 of a teaspoon salt, sea salt is what I like to use, and the 2 tablespoons of all-purpose einkorn flour. We're going to mix that up, give it a couple gentle tosses. You don't want to break up the berries unnecessarily. And what's going to happen almost immediately is the sugar is going to macerate the berries. Now it sounds like a fancy word, but basically it's drawing the juice, the natural juices from the sugar. And that's a good thing, but you don't want over maceration because it's going to just create too much juice, and you don't want any juice pouring out of your dough as it's baking. So we'll put that off to the side, and we're going to return to our dough and our almond cream. And you're going to add your blueberries to the center of your almond cream. And you can kind of heap them up. They will bake down a little bit as they're in the oven. And the goal is to keep it toward the center of your almond cream, so you don't have juices going everywhere. You want to keep all that goodness in the middle. And don't hold back on adding all of the juice. I know it looks like it's becoming a little bit of a blueberry lake, but if you don't add all of the juice, then your blueberry galette's going to be on the dry side. Okay, so we've got our blueberry filling, we have our almond cream and our dough. So what you're going to do next is very gently lift up the edges of your pastry dough and place it over the mound of blueberry filling. And you can see it coming out a little bit, but that's really okay. That's why you do a lined baking sheet, and you don't roll your dough very thin. It's expected that it's gonna come out a little bit. So it's a rustic pie. It's not supposed to be absolutely quote unquote perfect. And the juice you're gonna try to hold in. Okay, so you have your little pie, and then to that you're going to take a fork and mix up your egg white a little bit, and with a pastry brush you're going to dab on a little bit of egg white over your crust. You can be liberal with this. You want a nice brown color on your crust, and that's going to help, the egg white's going to help achieve that. Even if you have a little flour on there, that's really okay. So you go all the way around. It's going to also help seal in the juices. It's going to work with the dough to create a barrier so the juices stay in your pie or your galette. Okay, and then you take your cane sugar, and it could just be like a tablespoon or so, and with your fingers just kind of drizzle, make it snow with the cane sugar over your pastry dough. And that's also going to be browning in the oven. It's going to create a nice brown crust. Okay. All right, so we'll put this in the oven, 375 for 52 to 54 minutes. You want to take a peek at 52 minutes. Make sure it's not getting done too fast. If it is, you could probably take a piece of aluminum foil and just kind of gently tent over the galette just to prevent further browning, but it should be done in 52 to 54 minutes. So let's do that here. Welcome back to Karen's Kitchen. So we have the blueberry galette baking at 375. We set that for 52 minutes, and we're going to take a peek to make sure everything is browning nicely and getting done. So we're taking a break to work on our cupcakes and finish these. So these are vanilla cupcakes made with all-purpose einkorn. What we're going to do is core them, and you can get these online. They're a great tool to have in the kitchen. But all you do is hold your cupcake with your two fingers, and in the middle, press down, and whoop. So sometimes it doesn't come out, sometimes it does. If it doesn't, you just kind of give it a little bit of a lift, and what you're going to have is a nice little concentric hole in the center of your cupcake, and we're going to fill that with strawberry goodness. This is homemade strawberry jam. Let me just tell you how I made this. I took a 16-ounce bag of frozen strawberries, and I thawed them and added them to a saucepan, and then put in about half a cup of cane sugar, and maybe 2 teaspoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice, and you stir that in the pot until you see the breaking down of the strawberries. I'd say probably 15-20 minutes, something like that. And I like to take a potato masher and mash the strawberries in the saucepan and break them down to smaller pieces and let that cook. Just with a wooden spoon, just keep stirring until you see it thickening. I would say probably another 20 minutes or so, and you'll see it pulling away from the sides of the pan when it's getting thicker. You want to put it on a medium to low setting. You don't want strawberry sauce splattering all over your kitchen. And then I take a spoon and I'll taste it. And if it needs more sweetness, I'll add a little bit more sugar. I'm of the belief that you're always better eating desserts that have less sugar than more sugar. You want to taste that strawberry. You want to taste that chocolate. So you always want to kind of go back on your sugar even when you're starting with a new recipe, because you don't want to just taste sugar. You don't want it to be a sugar bomb. So once you see that thickening, you can pour that off and put it into a vessel like this, a bowl, and let that cool until you're ready to fill your cupcakes, whether they be vanilla, chocolate, or any other flavor that you like. So we'll go ahead and finish coring these. And sometimes the centers don't come out right away, which is just fine, because you can take a knife and plop them into a bowl. See, that came out. So here's like this little plunger, so you can get the cake out really easily. And these make great little snacks for your kids or your big kids. All right, so just remove the inside little circle of cake. And you don't want to dig out too much, because then whatever you're filling your cake with, it might leak out the bottom and you'll have a wet cupcake in the bottom. You want everything to stay in your cake. Okay, so now you could take a spoon and dollop about a tablespoon of your jam inside of each of your cakes. But one little hack I have is you take a small pastry bag. These are, I think, 12-ounce pastry bags. And you're going to open it up and with a spoon, start filling it with your jam, your lovely strawberry jam. It's the nicest combination of sweetness and tartness. I could just go into a quiet corner with a spoon and have a little snack of jam and be very happy. Okay, so you're going to fill it and then pull up your bag so you don't get your jam outside your bag. And then twist it so you close it so it's not running out the end. With a pair of scissors, you want to cut maybe about 1 inch or so from the tip into the bag. And then very carefully pipe your strawberry filling into your cupcake. Sometimes you're going to get a little bit of strawberry, and that's fine. And I'd like to overfill them a little bit, like that. That might be a little bit too much, because as your cupcakes sit, the jam might go down a little bit, and you want your filling to be nice and full in each of your cupcakes. So this is really an easy, quick way, especially if you're doing a number of cupcakes for a party and you have a number of things to prepare. It just makes that process go quicker. Okay, so those look pretty good. Put that off to the side. Wash hands a little bit. All right, now we're gonna go to making some buttercream. We're gonna take a short break. Hi, welcome back to Karen's Kitchen. We're gonna make our buttercream for our vanilla strawberry cupcakes. So we have here powdered sugar. We have, is it 120? Yeah, it's 80, I'm sorry, 80 grams of powdered sugar. We have 30 grams of blueberry powder, 25 grams of strawberry powder, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and a pinch of sea salt, and 12 tablespoons of unsalted butter, or a stick and a half. So if you don't have a pinch measurement at home, just really get your fingers in there and do a healthy pinch, and that's about all you'll need. But the salt helps balance out the sweet in buttercream. So you've got a bowl. You don't need a fancy mixer or anything. So we're just going to get some elbow grease going with butter. And make sure your butter is room temperature. It'd be really hard to mix this with really cold butter. So you want to get a spatula and kind of break down your butter. Just mash it into the bowl. Mix it up a little bit. And then we're going to take our powdered sugar, and I want to use a sifter like we did with the einkorn. Not to aerate it, but just for the purpose of breaking down larger pieces. And again, use your hand, which is your best kitchen tool. Swirl around your powdered sugar, press it through the sieve. And then we're gonna mix this in. Do it kind of carefully. You don't want a snowstorm in your kitchen. And you're gonna work the butter into the powdered sugar. See, snowstorm. So what I'm doing is mashing the butter up against the powdered sugar. Oh, also a pinch of salt. And what you're looking for is a creamy consistency with all the sugar mixed into your butter. And I'm just pressing down the butter into the bowl because you don't want air bubbles in your buttercream. So this is creating a nice consistency. So we are going to make a Mary Berry cupcake. So for me, that means a couple of different berry flavors in the buttercream. So this is blueberry powder. It's basically freeze-dried blueberries, naturally occurring color, no artificial flavors, colors, preservatives. It's just frozen or freeze-dried blueberries, and the same thing with this, it's strawberry. So we want to divide up our buttercream mixture so that we have some vanilla, we have some blueberry, and we have some strawberry. So we have a triple threat. Let's also add our teaspoon of vanilla because that's going to be the flavor for all three. But then we're coloring it to make it festive in lieu of the approaching 4th of July celebration. It's going to have more of a, not kind of a purplish, not so much blue, but it'll be different from the strawberry, from the red color. So we have that vanilla in there. We take 2 other bowls because we want to divide this up into thirds so that we're coloring 2 parts of it with the other flavors. So just kind of eyeball it and dollop a third into each bowl, leaving a third of the vanilla flavored buttercream in your bowl. And then you're going to take your blueberry powder and with a sieve or a strainer, or sifter I should say, because you want to break down any big pieces. So gently stir it around in your sifter and that'll break up any big pieces of the powder. It does a really good job. Little mini sifters, or you could use a big sifter. It's just I happen to have this on hand. And you want to press that through the sifter like so. And then with a spatula, another spatula, because you want to keep that one with your vanilla. Like we did with the powdered sugar, mixing it in with the butter. You want to press the butter into the flour or the powdered mixture. As best you can. Try to grab all the powder. So it's going to look like that. You want to do it until it smooths out. Okay. Almost done. Okay, and you don't want to see any pieces or streaks of butter remaining. So you've got a nice solid blue, and now you're going to do your strawberry. Like we did with the blueberry. And I purposely added less of the strawberry powder, 25 grams versus 30, because when they're added to the butter, it seemed like there wasn't that much of it, or there was not a big difference between the strength of color for the strawberry versus the blueberry. And I wanted the strawberry to stand out more against the blueberries, so I just used a little bit less so that there's more of a color difference. You can do what you want, you know, in your kitchen, but I just wanted to have that strawberry shine against the blueberry and not be too close in color. So the strawberry and the blueberry will give your buttercream a very beautiful and delicious strawberry and blueberry flavor without any artificial colors, which in my opinion don't really do a whole lot of good for your body. You're getting your fruits in buttercream. Who would have thought? All right, so we're mixing this around, and we don't want to see any streaks remaining of the butter. We want a smooth color, overall color. So it's going to look like that. So you've got your strawberry and your blueberry and your vanilla. So now we're going to add it to our piping bag. So you want them to come out all at the same time through a larger piping bag. So what we're going to do is fill a piping bag full of the blueberry, the strawberry, and the vanilla, and then I'm going to place them in a bigger piping bag with a star tip. And then we'll squeeze them all out at the same time, and hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll get an even amount of all three of those colors. So I'm going to quickly wash my hands. And add each of these to a bag. And once your buttercream is in your bag, you want to get it down to the tip, because that's where it's going to be coming out. So just kind of close up the top and kind of nudge it toward the bottom. And then with our scissors, we're going to cut a big enough hole so that it comes out evenly, probably about 1 inch and maybe a little bit over 1 inch off the end. And then you just keep pushing very gently so that, and then twist the end. So it's just about out, but not all out. And then we're going to go on to our strawberry and do the same thing with that and with the vanilla. And freeze-dried powders like this are easily found at your local grocery store or online, and they're pretty prevalent nowadays, so you can price shop, which is always nice to save money, especially when you're buying special items that you're not used to using on a regular basis. So you just kind of press that down, twist the end so it stays in the bag, go up about a little over 1 inch, and then work it the way down, not quite to the bottom. And I think your kids, if you have kids, or just other people in the house that you live with that enjoy baking and enjoy eating, they would get a lot of fun of just putzing in the kitchen and playing with buttercream. Who doesn't like buttercream? And just kind of making your own flavor combinations. You don't have to use blueberry and strawberry. If you like raspberry, raspberry's out there too. Pineapple, mango, I've seen all sorts of flavors. So we have our 3 bags, blueberry, strawberry, and vanilla. And then we're going to add these to a bigger bag. I have to cut off the tip. So I'm going in about maybe about 1.5 inches. And then I'm taking my star tip and putting it in the end. And you don't have to use a star tip. I just like using star tips. I like the pattern, the design that it makes. And then you want to carefully line them up like soldiers. So take one of your bags and put it in your piping bag where the end of it is very close to where it's going to come out the tip. And see, so like that. So they're kind of lined up next to each other, even. Okay, so what I'll have to do is pull these out a little bit because 3 bags, it's like 3's a crowd, right? But this is gonna be a very tasty crowd. All right, so kind of work your way down in the bag. And ideally you wanna have these come out simultaneously. So there you go. So keep, like I have my hand in there and twisting. Okay, so that's good. All right, so now we're gonna close it at the end and give it a twist. And then we'll go to our cupcakes. And we're gonna take a brief break right now. Thanks. Hi, welcome back to Karen's Kitchen. So we are about ready to finish our cupcakes, our vanilla strawberry cupcakes, just in time for the 4th of July, called Mary Berry cupcakes made with einkorn flour. So I have in here the different colors that we put together, and take a pair of scissors and you're gonna trim down this bag because it's just too much bulk to squeeze to work with as you're trying to assemble your cupcakes and put the buttercream on there. So you're going to keep this closed and twist so that you're keeping the pressure toward the bottom of where your buttercream is going to come out your piping tip. So it's nice to have this open and free so it's not in your way, and also this bag is holding the bottom contents that are coming out to the tip. So you're going to twist this, keeping the pressure, and then go right directly over your cupcake and do your circular motion, going on the outside ring and then going on the inside and then pulling up toward the center. So that's mainly white coming out. So I do see some other colors joining the party. So again, keeping your pressure on the end. You want to go right straight up and squeeze from the end and go around, make a circle and go in the center and then pull up. And then you're going to do that for all your cupcakes until all of them have a buttercream on top. I'll turn this around. So I'm starting to see the blueberry with the strawberry. Very excited. The tricolors are coming together beautifully. It's going to be a blueberry explosion in your mouth. Keep that pressure on the back of your bag and then twist and pull up. You could even pull the end of the bag down if it's in your way. You keep that twisted at the end and stand over your cupcakes and keep that pressure and go around in a circle and then go in the middle and then pull up. And then we'll get to these. So we'll pull those out. All right, almost done here. Getting to the end of our buttercream. And keep twisting. Sometimes the buttercream needs a little a little help getting where it needs to go. Let me finish this one. And then 2 more. And I think I'm out of buttercream. Okay, so we'll go ahead and make more at a later time. But when you go to finish up your cupcakes, I have these cute, adorable little flags just in time for 4th of July. So you're gonna gently put those into the top of your buttercream. And then we're gonna plate these up on a nice platter for your party. Hi, so we took our blueberry galette out of the oven. As you can see, it's nice and golden brown. And I'm going to lift it up off our parchment very gently. And it's okay if some of that blueberry is kind of crusty. So, I think I can just, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to lift it. Instead of lifting it to the plate, it's still a little warm out of the oven. So what I want to do is plate it up for you guys. So with a knife, you want to get a nice slice to plate up for your guests. So just cut a little wedge like you would a piece of pie. And then I've got a dessert plate here. And with a pie server, you want to lift up, still a little warm. You'd probably do this when it's more cool, but we can do this while it's a little warm. You can see some steam coming off of that baby. All right, so we put this on our plate, and I'm actually gonna grab more berries. See that steam coming off, so it's still cooling. And then we have some beautiful vanilla ice cream. I like vanilla bean, just adds more flavor. And get a nice little scoop. All right, where should we put you? How about right here at the end? And then the crowning glory is homemade strawberry sauce. And I make this very similar to the way I make strawberry jam, except instead of using cane sugar, I'll use powdered sugar, about 3/4 of a cup to 1 cup of powdered sugar with 16 ounces of frozen strawberries. And you don't necessarily have to thaw them out, but it's probably a good idea just to kind of eliminate some of that extra water from them being frozen. And about 2 teaspoons to 2.5 teaspoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice. And then you're gonna put that through a sieve so that you catch any of the strawberry pieces so that you're left with a nice smooth strawberry sauce. So then what we're gonna do is pour that over the top of our vanilla bean ice cream. And there you have a little bit of red, white, and blue blueberry galette, vanilla bean ice cream with homemade strawberry sauce. Who could resist a plate like that? Thanks for watching today. It's been a blast baking for you in my kitchen. Today we made Mary Berry cupcakes, vanilla cupcakes filled with homemade strawberry jam, topped with a triple berry threat of vanilla, blueberry, and strawberry buttercream, and a blueberry galette, pastry dough filled with almond cream, blueberry filling, and topped with vanilla bean ice cream and homemade strawberry sauce. And I'm gonna try this puppy right here and see what this tastes like. Get a little bit of everything. Wow, you can taste the almond cream. It's nice and creamy. The crispiness of the pastry comes through, and it's a nice balance versus the cold and smooth texture of the ice cream, and then the sweet and slightly acid strawberry sauce. Love it. You can find me at Karen the Baker 2 on Instagram and Facebook, and I have a website that I would love for you to visit so I can bake for you too, KarenTheBaker.com. Thanks for watching.